Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is, oh my gosh, Friday, July 25th, 2025. I got there. And BritCard digital ID, it's coming. Vietnam, they're rolling out their digital ID. And Vietnam's a communist country. I think it's a communist country. And that's what the tweet says. So digital ID is maybe expected there. China's got their 15-minute cities. You have to, like Costco, click in and click out, or scan in and scan out, right? Costco's training Western people to do this. Walmart's going to be next. I hope I'm wrong. Fingers crossed. I hope I'm wrong about that. But they're going to start having this as becoming a part of life for your safety, comrade, of course, right? And people will get used to it. And then people will start depending on it and like it. And then start saying, you didn't scan in here, right? And then all of a sudden, the mask Karens are back, right? And I hope that I'm wrong about that, but we've got digital ID to talk about, central bank digital currency, and Trump to talk about as well. Unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong about that as well, but my gosh, there are too many coincidences, and I just don't believe in those anymore. No pipelines for you, says Wab Canoe. And maybe that should have been the title for today's show. And so Wab Canoe is kind of holding things up. But the idea that one province can hold up pipelines for the whole country, that's insane. And Mark Carney set that up. So Wab Canoe is just filling that space, right? There's a power abhors a vacuum. So Wab Canoe is just filling that vacuum. Muslims can close streets to pray in front of churches, Christian churches in Canada, but Christian rockers can't have a concert? Nope. Everybody's citing health and safety. Oh my gosh, it's very unsafe if you have a Christian concert here. It's very unsafe. I feel unsafe. You feel unsafe. We all feel unsafe for Christian concerts. Really, really. So the concerts will go on, and he's finding new venues, and good for him. So we've got to talk about that and free speech in the context of free speech. Air Canada is policing shirts now. If you have a shirt that has our former prime minister wearing blackface, which he did often, so often he can't remember how many times he dressed up in blackface. If you have that, Air Canada won't let you fly. Wow. Isn't that wild? I've got that. Non-citizens are able to be candidates in a Canadian by-election. And I don't know if they're citizens in Canada, if they're permanent residents or whatever, but they've got their address set as like United Kingdom. So we've got that for you as well. Tamara's lawyer compares what's going on now with the freedom fighting in years gone by and freedom fighting in previous wars. And I'll let him say it. I think it's quite good. But Tamara and Chris don't get their actual sentencing until October now. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. Isn't it strange if you had somebody, like, say this was a serious thing? I personally don't feel like Tamara Lich or Chris Barber deserve to spend any time in jail. They personally didn't do anything other than organize a peaceful protest in Ottawa, and that's protected under our charter rights. We're allowed to do that. It may make the government uncomfortable and unhappy, but I don't think that's criminal. I don't think they deserve to have any time in jail. But if somebody did deserve to have time in jail, say this was a mischief trial for somebody like in the G20, when they were, throwing bricks through car windows, causing lots and lots of damage, doing all sorts of violence, intimidating people, scaring the hell out of people. If the trial took this long, it's been years, 3 years. And now they're like, okay, we've got all your stuff in. Now we're going to think about it for a while, enjoy the rest of your summer. Isn't that weird? Isn't that hinky with regards to the whole everything that has to do with justice? Shouldn't justice be delivered swiftly? Shouldn't you not be twisting in the wind, waiting years for a sentence that may be 10 years, right? Like, oh no, you've got this Damascus sword of a 10-year sentence hanging over your head, but enjoy the rest of your summer. It's weird. It's a very strange thing. And I mean, if they did deserve to be in prison, which I have said very clearly, I don't think they do, but if this was a trial that rose to that occasion and they were like, okay, we'll see you in October, right? People would be outraged. Nobody's outraged in this case, but what the heck? It doesn't make any sense. Justice is not behaving in a way that I think is acceptable at this point in time. And so very, very odd. And I didn't realize that it wasn't going to be until October 7th of 2025 that we get a sentencing decision. I thought we were going to have a sentence this week. People were asking me on Tuesday, what's the sentencing? I'm like, the show just I do Monday on Tuesday, right? So we talk about what happened yesterday. So today I'm just talking about yesterday, mostly. And like the early morning stories. Often I scoop a lot of the daily stories for like the regular newspapers, but that's just because I'm up super early. I was up at 3:00 this morning. It was ridiculous. I went back to bed for a bit, but up early this morning. Anyway, I digress. Here's Dacey, and he was covering this whole thing. And freedom has never been free, says Lawrence Greenspan, Tamara's lawyer. And here's his comments following the closing of the presentation of sentencing material, I guess. Here it is.
Freedom isn't free. Freedom is not free. And then you talk about the historical struggle as well. Could you explain a little bit more about that?
Freedom has never been free. The people that have gone to war and lost their lives and made the greatest sacrifice, they've done so that the freedom and liberty of other people can be cherished and can continue. Now, Tamara and Chris didn't lose their life, but in Tamara's case, she lost her liberty for a significant period of time. She looks at that as the price that she was willing to pay to speak out on behalf of the freedoms of thousands of Canadians.
Is it too
And she asks about him commenting on the Crown's requested amount of time for sentencing, jail time and such. And he says, I'm not going to comment. And then he says, it's too much. It's too much. And so I thought it was funny. I'm not going to comment about the Crown's terrible, terrible decision to ask for this too many years and things like that. He's a little bit more eloquent about it, but I just thought it was funny. But we've got to move on. I've got so many tabs and I only have a limited amount of time. Tamara Litch herself says, hammer down, heading west. We will be back in Ottawa on October 7th, which will conclude the longest mischief trial of all time. Is there something about that October 7th date? Like there have been significant events recently about that on that date. Is there something else significant? Like, is there a reason that October 7th happened on October 7th? Or Now, she continues, my sincere appreciation for everyone who showed up to support, for all of your calls and messages and DMs. It's appreciated more than you can ever know. And so that's, good for them. I don't think they deserve any jail time at all. Eddie says he's responding to the Globe and Mail, and the Globe and Mail says it's time to end the sedition in Ottawa by enforcing the law and following the money. And Ryan says, just a reminder who was behind the scenes pulling the strings to freeze non-criminal Canadian bank accounts and their assets. And that was written by Mark Carney right around the Freedom Convoy era of February 7th, 2022. End the sedition, enforce the law, follow the money of these insurrectionists, so-called, but they weren't insurrectionists. They were peaceful protesters who were upset with an overstepping government who damn well knew they were overstepping and they shouldn't have. And now they're being scapegoated and it's wrong. It's wrong. And I can't believe that there are so many people following along with it. Eddie says, being one whose accounts were frozen on the advice of this man, Carney, I can't help but wonder if he's whispering in the ear of the courts for Chris and Tamara. He is a tyrant. He is a tyrant that will destroy what's left of Canada. It feels like it's being fast-tracked. It feels like somebody walked into the kitchen and said, we've got it to sell order. They want their noodles and they want them right meow. And so, right, we're getting fast-tracked on this, whatever it is. And I don't like that, but it's definitely palpable. You can feel it. I can feel it. And I think anybody who's keyed in can feel it. Andy Lee says 3 years later, and Canada still holds political prisoners in its iron lawfare grip. Andy Lee again says protesters are painting Free Tamara on the roads in cornstarch and chalk. So Free Tamara, and the powers that be are not listening. They're not interested. They don't want that. They want to make an example of Tamara Litch. Chris Barber says, I can assure everyone my parents are alive and well. Yet another example of legacy media spreading misinformation. And so I think it's the Globe and Mail, but I could be wrong about that. It's a big, CTV News. CTV News is talking about Barber not having his parents around. And he says, no, they're just lying people who lie about everything, which is weird. It's a weird thing. It's a weird feature to have your national news media just be known as liars to everybody, right? Like, I don't trust anything they say, or I think that there's an angle to this that is not what they're presenting here. There's something else happening that is not in this article. I'm sure of it. So the election is going on still in Battle River Crowfoot, and I think there are 200 candidates. I've been talking about them being 200 candidates for a while now, before there were 200 candidates. But I think they are actually crossed that threshold now, or they're close. And apparently some of the candidates are not from Canada and not living in Canada, I think. And Elections Canada, Stephen says, Elections Canada let foreign residents register to run against Pierre Poilievre in the by-election, eh? So province or territory, United Kingdom, city, Lancaster. Oh, okay. On Denmark Street in Lancaster, United Kingdom. Huh. Well, that's not in Canada. So you're disqualified. What? How is that even possible? And there are more than one candidate doing this. This person's in Fremont, Nebraska. So that's the United States. So that's, close but no cigar. Canada's not quite there yet. Okay? Nebraska, if you want to move to Canada, you got to lobby Trump and some more Canadians to get that 51st state thing going. Here is GM. He says Davis has obtained a full list so far of the people registered to run against Polyev in the by-election, including copies of their registration papers. There are people who list their home address being in the United States and the United Kingdom. Wah, wah, right? Like, we are not a serious country, right? Oh, that's probably too much. Sorry, everyone. So, Canada's whole infrastructure, from the police, which try real hard, except for the RCMP, to the judiciary, to the elections, to the government, to healthcare, to education. Is there an institution that we pay for with taxes that you trust at all? Because I'm batting 0 for 6 here, right? I'm sure there's more I'm forgetting, but everything, international trade, everything else I have 0 faith in. If we can't get those basic 6 things right, immigration, 7, right, 8, 9, then we can't get anything right. And the people who are running it really should be held accountable for failing miserably in their job. Andy Lee continues. This is money, and the grab bag of governance is way later today as well. Just because that's how it worked out. We've got other things to deal with that are, I think, more important. But Andy Lee says, to give you an idea of how badly money is spent in Canada, a diversity nonprofit has received $9 million, almost $10 million, since 2016 to, quote, empower newcomers in Terrence. Population in 2016 of Terrence is 11,643 people. The estimated population in 2024 is 14,375 people. $10 million? That's $1 million spent on an average of 303 newcomers a year. There's a lot of waste, a lot of taxpayer waste. And where is this going? Salaries. These are jobs, and then people come in and do their jobs, and the people make $60,000 a year, and the building makes the rest of the money, right? Like, and somebody's taken that money, and I bet you following the money would be very, very difficult. I bet you we wouldn't be able to follow the money effectively, and there would be some kind of national security or some kind of block privacy issues, something like that would prevent us from finding out exactly where all of that money went. I'm also suspicious of the lottery. I'm very, very suspicious of how much money goes into the lottery and what they say they're putting back into the community. I don't know. I haven't seen a list of recipients of any scholarships or money for school or anything like that. You'd think I went down a rabbit hole and I didn't have enough information to do a whole video on it, but I was like, man, there's something here, but I don't know where to go to find the something, because I think the something is nothing. I think that I think that they're just keeping the money and or using it, allocating it somewhere else. I know that there are payouts. City of Aurora gets money for the track. There are all sorts of situations where there are payouts, but I'm talking about the direct community contributions to scholarships and things like that. I can't find recipient winners. I can't find, like, going back 5 years, 10 years, whatever. I can't find anybody. No names, no nothing, no first name, no general region, location, no nothing. And so I'm like, there's something weird here. Anyway, I digress. Liam says Britain's public finances, and Canada's too, are starting to resemble a Ponzi scheme. David says, starting? What? What? Yes. My latest when the fact change post explaining the fiscal realities so much of our political and media class seem determined to ignore. And yeah, this week's official fiscal report for June reveals that no less than 4/5 of the money the United Kingdom government is borrowing is now being spent on interest payments on existing debt, which people were worried about. Polyev got angry at Freeland for borrowing a lot of money when the interest rates are low. He said, what happens when the interest rates go up? And that means debt service costs more. So what costs $500,000 now, for example, if the interest rates double, now will cost $1 million. If they double again, $2 million, and so on and so forth. And so interest rates being higher than they were when the borrowing was initiated, when they come up for renewal, now the higher rates equal more money to serve that debt, and we're in a debt spiral trap, right? And we're not getting out of it because we're increasing spending and ignoring the debt spiral trap that's happening right in front of our faces, probably by design, unfortunately. And the solution, obviously, central bank digital currencies, crypto, excuse me, crypto, I misspoke. Trump, take it away.
The Americans are unaware that behind the scenes, the technical backbone of the financial system is decades out of date, many, many years out of date. You know that. Paul and others are straightening it out, but payments and money transfers are costly and take days or even weeks to clear. Under this bill, the entire ancient system will be eligible for a 21st century upgrade using the state-of-the-art crypto technology Who would have thought we would have been saying that 2 years after many Americans are...
Right. So they're heading into crypto. They're overhauling money payments and things like that. XRP was touted as being the solution, but XRP is frozen right now because of some issue. I don't know what the issue is, but it was touted as being the solution because there were something like a lot of simultaneous transactions, whereas Bitcoin, you have to line up and all your transactions have to take place in order, but there's an order queue and the order comes in and it runs through. I think that's correct. I don't think I'm misspeaking. And they were saying that's a bottleneck. We have to fix that if we want to have at scale. And so that's what XRP was supposed to be. XRP was supposed to be the standard for the banks and things like that. And that's what this is bringing in. And Catherine Austin Fitts sees it too. And she's as concerned, more concerned probably than I am, because at least I got chocolate cereal. Dusty Rose says, Canada is over. Table 2 says provincial net debt as a percentage of GDP 2007, 2008, and 24-25. So in 2007, 2008, BC had 11.9% debt, but in 25, it's got 21% debt, or debt is the percentage of GDP. It's gone up to 21%, right? In Alberta, it's worse, the same maybe, minus 13%, now is 7.8%, right? And that's, worse. Points changed, 21 points changed. Saskatchewan, 11%, now 14%, 2.8% change. In Manitoba, 21%, now 36%, 14 points more. Ontario, 26%, now 36%, 9.7 points more. 9.7 points more. Yeah, that's right. Quebec, 41.5%, now 38%, negative 2.8. So I guess those equalization payments have gone up. Hey, Quebec? Hey? Wink, wink, wink. New Brunswick, 24% then, 25% now, 0.5% increase. Nova Scotia, 35% then, 31% now, minus 4. PEI, 29% then, 29% now, 0.4 increase. Newfoundland, 35% then, 44% now, 10% increase. So interesting chart, and it's concerning that we can't get a handle on our debt. We're addicted to debt, and we don't see a problem with it. Thank you very much. Nobody's going to stop this course. The only thing they're going to do is blame us and then change our money so that when they get into this pickle again, they can turn off our money and say, it's all fixed. Inflation's over. We turned off the money that was problematic of the problematic people too. So win-win, right? And yeah, I think that they're actually planning to do something like that. Let's talk about the invasion ongoing of the West. And Colin DeMello says, Ontario is planning to sidestep the federal government and begin issuing work permits to asylum seekers living in the province using a clause written into the Constitution. So, there are a whole lot of people who are saying Doug Ford should not be allowed to do this. He can't do this. This is improper. We're not allowed. We shouldn't allow this. But Ford is using a clause that allows the provinces to handle immigration to give illegal asylum seekers, illegals called asylum seekers, the ability to work in Ontario, while the federal government's figuring out if the federal government can give them the ability to work in Ontario. So here's part of that article from Global News. Ontario is planning to sidestep the federal government and begin issuing work permits to asylum seekers living in the province using a clause written into the Constitution. At the end of a three-day summit with the nation's leaders in Muskoka, Ontario, Premier Ford said his government would start studying how it could give asylum seekers the right to work immediately in the province. We have the authority in that area, he said. No one understands the sectors and their labor needs better than the premiers. Ford said it was Alberta's Premier Smith who pointed out Section 95 of the Constitution gives provinces the right to make decisions on immigration. That section allows provincial governments to create laws governing immigration as long and as far only as it is not repugnant to any federal law. If I was the Premier, I would remove all the illegals, citing Section 95. And if the government said that was repugnant, then I'd take the government to court to explain what they mean by that, because our borders are a real thing. And I wouldn't be using Section 95 to give work permits to to people who are sucking off the Ontario teat. I would deport them, period. If I have control of immigration, get out. I'd be Uncle Phil tossing jazz. Right meow, right now. Holy smoke. I just realized I have control of immigration. What should I do? Fast track their work permits. What? No, that's the wrong move, Doug Ford. Global News continues. Global News has contacted the Federal Immigration Ministry to ask if it would oppose any moves by Ontario. No, they won't. To give asylum seekers work permits. It did not send a statement in time for publication. We will be issuing our own work permits, Ford declared on Thursday. He said the move made sense in order to allow asylum seekers who receive government support while their applications are processed to contribute to the local economy as they wait. This is a quote, I have a tremendous amount of asylum seekers that are up in Etobicoke in hotels. They're healthy, they're willing to work, they're hardworking people, but they're waiting over 2 years and they're just sucking off the system. Not their fault, Ford says. If you enter a country illegally and the country says, right this way to a hotel, and then you say it's not their fault, they're not working, I have a disagreement. I don't think that's true. I think that they planned to do exactly this. And I think that the whole system is set up to make this happen. And I think that Ford is facilitating it. And that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The fault, he says, falls under immigration and it takes over 2 years to get a work permit. If that's true, then they shouldn't be allowed here for 2 years. Wait till you get your work permit and then maybe you can come if there's work for you, because right now there's no work, right? There's no work. Hold on. I've got a guy in Guelph talking about, the work situation in Guelph, and they're bringing people in. Shazi says, they keep saying Canada just needs more workers, that we have a labor shortage, but in Guelph, an employment consultant says people have been job hunting for 1 to 2 years. Some end up in shelters. There are no jobs. So this is a person that she's spoken with, and she took a screenshot, and he says, this is truly what I experience every day as an employment consultant in a government-funded employment service here in Guelph. I meet desperate job seekers who have been in Canada for at least 1 or 2 years and still haven't been able to find a job. Many of them have been actively searching for over a year, sometimes even 2, without success. This is the root cause of the problem. Some have even ended up living in shelters. It's heartbreaking and overwhelming. Don't come here. Simple solution. Very simple solution. We could just make them leave, because a Saskatchewan judge has ruled that foreigners do not have a right to immigrate to Canada. This is a refreshing voice of sanity in the cacophony of madness that we have heard from other court rulings recently. Sad that we need a court ruling to say something so obvious. Here's the court ruling. Foreigners do not have a right to immigrate to Canada. The Saskatchewan judge has ruled. This is from Blacklocks, I think. The decision came from the case of an Indian lab technician whose permit was revoked on suspicion of irregularities. Foreign nationals do not have a right to immigrate to Canada. This content is for Blacklocks reporters members only. So here's a link to the Blacklocks link if you want to read the whole story. But no or few rights to live in Canada. Thank goodness. Saskatchewan judge is sane. But Canadians don't really want to live in Canada anymore because it doesn't really resemble the Canada that I grew up in anyway. I go out and I don't recognize I still live in the town where I grew up. I don't recognize downtown. They've turned it into a nightmare utopia of bike lanes and single lane traffic that used to be 4-lane traffic that's been reduced to single lane to slow people down, and Karens who drive 10 kilometers under the speed limit, and rainbow flags everywhere. Whereas before we used to have some kind of pride in ourselves and in our community and in our country. Now people just have orange flags and rainbow flags and nonsense. And it is done on purpose. It is encouraged by the city, and it's crazy. People want to leave because this place has gone bonkers. Canada is not what it was at all. And I wish that wasn't the case, but it is the case. Here's the Winnipeg Sun. The silent exodus by this guy, why some Canadians are giving up. Yeah. How many Canadians would leave if the door to the United States was held open by President Donald Trump? It's not a rhetorical question anymore. The exodus has already begun. Families are quietly packing up and heading south. People who once wore the maple leaf with pride are asking themselves a painful but unavoidable question. Can I still raise my kids here? The answer is probably not unless you want them to be radical leftist rainbow flag waving lunatics. And that's what the schools are promoting, honestly. One of the things, I stopped being a fan of the Maple Leafs officially years ago because they never actually make it past the first round of the playoffs. And so it's more to needle my brother. I play hockey, but I play Xbox hockey. I don't actually follow hockey all that closely. But I feel like that about Canada, right? Like people used to be enthusiastic about this team or whatever, this country. And now it's like, Florida's looking nice, right? The Florida Lightning's good, but the Florida Panthers are really good too, right? Arizona's looking real nice. They don't have any snow, right? Texas is looking a little dicey. It's a little, I don't know about Texas. I'm not sure. Maybe northern Texas I could deal with, but that's got a lot of tornadoes, right? Tennessee looks good. Not Oklahoma, but maybe Oklahoma. Yeah. Montana, Oklahoma, West, right? I could deal with that. So I find myself looking at these places and thinking, man, like it'd be cheaper. My money I would get to keep more of my money. Right now we have, what is it, a 60% tax hit? It's a massive tax hit. And I'm talking not just employment tax, right? Like I'm talking when you encapsulate all the taxes we pay on taxes for carbon taxes, the gas taxes, the alcohol taxes, the sales taxes, the fees, the bank fees, all of that, the before you buy, the after you buy, the while you're buying, right? We get screwed 6 ways from Sunday in everything. And I look down at the States and I think they've got their issues too. Make no mistake, right? Donald Trump's no walk in the park. And whatever will come after him, I'm sure will be worse. So that sucks too. Where do you go, right? Canada looks cooked, looks absolutely cooked at this point in time. And it doesn't look like there's any real path to fixing it. It's like expecting the Leafs to win the Stanley Cup, man, right? I'm like, man, I could be a Florida Lightning fan. Easy. They win sometimes. I can remember the last time they were in the playoffs and like made it deep. Recommended video. Oh, sorry. Michael Sachs asked himself that question, then he answered it with a moving truck. Yeah, man, absolutely. Right? People don't want to waste their time in this sinking ship, unfortunately. Robbie says, let me take a swing at why it's called the silent exodus. It's because the people leaving don't have the energy to scream anymore. They're worn down not just by bad policies or rising costs, but by the relentless keyboard warriors on social media who vilify anyone daring to want a better life for themselves and their kids. People aren't leaving because they hate Canada. They're leaving because half the country cheers while it burns, and the other half is getting punched in the face for trying to put out the fire. Just take a stroll through the comments here on X. The smug condescension, the seething intolerance, the open hostility toward anyone who doesn't toe the Progressive Party line. It's all right here, proudly on display. So if you're wondering why people are giving up on Canada, just keep scrolling through the comments below. That attitude, it's not just online. It's waiting at every corner, every school board meeting, every grocery store where somebody buys an American product, and every neighborhood where you proudly display a CPC sign. Well, the CPC sign's a uniparty, man. Sorry. Those are the same tolerant folks who keep shouting good riddance to anyone who even hints at leaving. Classy, right? So yeah, pretty wild. And I'm not surprised that people are not accepting this garbage anymore. YEG Wave says construction is officially kicked off for the future site of Omar Ibn al-Khattab Academy, a new Islamic school set to rise in South Edmonton at the intersection of 86th Street and 41st Avenue. OIAA aims to complete construction by the end of the next summer, with plans to open in September 26. So it's a very big Islamic school in Edmonton, and weird. What do you think the feeling would be if it was a Catholic school? And Danielle Smith bust in a whole bunch of people during her leadership race to promise them Sharia banking and money to build this and money for other things as well. And I wrote about that on Canada Poly. If you're interested, it's under the news tab, but I stopped updating that because it was busy and I don't know. I was too scattered. I had to focus. So anyway, I did write about that situation because I thought it was very odd and a lot of people weren't talking about it. Here's this lady and she's talking about what's going on in Canada. And she says, mass immigration is failing in Europe and they're 5 years ahead of us. Look at what's happened to Sweden. They're 10 years ahead of us and it's failing. It's failing massively. They know it's a failed experiment and yet nobody's making any. We've watched 15 cars crash into the wall while we drive 100 kilometers behind them to watch them all crash into the wall. And we're staying on the gas, baby. We're driving straight into that wall. Failed experiment. Same thing. Here we go.
I think there's a lot to learn from Europe regarding migration and how they've had these open borders and they've implemented all these leftist policies and they have failed. They're failed experiments. Liberalism is a failed experiment and we're seeing it in Europe. Take Sweden, for example. Sweden used to be known for its open door migration policy. Everyone in. And then in 2015, they had this big migrant crisis. They had so many asylum seekers that the government literally said that they were not able to sustain this migration into the country. They ran out of resources. They ran out of money, ran out of pensions. And while they were running out of money, it was also becoming the bombing capital of Europe. It had the highest rate of gangland killings. Their RAPE rapes skyrocketed. Guess who were the perpetrators? Asylum seekers, immigrants. They had 200 Swedes join ISIS. So they saw how migration.
So they're doing this on purpose. It's not an accident. It's not a mistake. Okay. Paul Joseph Watson, who's a Brit, says this is in a remote seaside town with a population of 8,000. Strawman says more than one coach full of illegal migrants has arrived in a quiet seaside town of Cromer this evening. Locals like myself weren't told anything. They're just dropping people off in buses. See you later, guys. Enjoy your new home, because it's not these people's home anymore. It's your home. Go take it. Here is Radio Genoa. Bishop Schneider, speaks cleanly. These are not refugees. These are invaders. I don't think he's wrong.
Yes, this is very serious. Now we are witnessing an invasion. They are not refugees. No, this is an invasion of mass Islamization of Europe, which already went on for at minimum 50, 60 years, Islamization in Europe. But now it is in mass. It is very evident. And so this is a global political agenda by the powerful of the world to destroy Europe culturally and religiously. I mean, to destroy Christianity ultimately in Europe, with the help of the massive Islamic population. And I was reading recently an article of a sociologist who made a calculation that maybe in 30 or 40 years, when it's now going on, so the majority of the population of Europe will be Islamic. Europe will be Islam.
It's simple math. Old stock Canadians are not having children. Old stock Europeans are not having enough children. And we're importing so many people that have 9, 10, 5, 6 kids, which is more than double what the old stock populations are having. So we are being outbred. The other population, the new population being imported, is being supported by our tax dollars. They are being handed our tax dollars through child benefits, through all sorts of things. It is accurate what that man is saying. Here is Sarah, and she's an MP, and she says, we're being invaded. We're being invaded. And we should probably respond to the invasion that is happening.
Well, we've been asking for these